welcome to Gaming History 101. My name is Sasha and I'll be your host today. Now, as we found out last week, Nintendo was making a deal with Philips to create a Super Nintendo CD attachment, and that never materialized because Nintendo was generous, and as part of the deal, they let Philips make games on the CDI using Nintendo IPs, and we all know how those turned out. The ones we know too well about are Hotel Mario, Zelda Wand of Gamelon, Zelda's Adventure, and Link the Faces of Evil. But, alongside Mario Takes America, did you know there was another game amongst the cesspool of cringe that didn't look like a cesspool and didn't completely make you cringe at first glance? All Leafy's here references shoved aside, today we're going to be talking about the cancelled game, Super Mario's Wacky Worlds. Let's go. In 1993, Philips was in a kind of uncomfortable situation. The CDI was doing very poorly against the literal 13 other systems at the market at the time, and just in general, it wasn't doing very well. As part of the deal between Philips and Nintendo, the CDI did receive 4 games containing Nintendo characters that were supposedly supposed to help market the system, yet they didn't do anything to help because the games were crap. A small company named Novalogic, looking to be hired by Nintendo, approached Nintendo with the proposition of, hey, why don't we put Super Mario World and other simple Super Nintendo games onto the CDI? This would give some supposed guaranteed quality, as well as a quick and easy cash grab. Novalogic assigned 2 programmers, the late and great Silas Warner of Castle Wolfenstein fame, and a guy named John Brooks who I couldn't really find any info on. The claim is that these two worked 24 hours a day for 2 weeks straight, working on a part of a level they were showing to Nintendo. They got the game up and running and supposedly had it burned on a CD only 4 hours before their 8 AM Friday morning deadline was to be met. Nintendo liked the work the two men had achieved and would have given them the green light, however due to poor sales of the CDI, they had to pull the axe on the project. Once they pulled the plug, Silas Warner's short career on the CDI ended. He had expected this response from Nintendo though, while others like lead art director Nina Stanley expected them to keep the project afloat. Though the game developers were highly enthusiastic about making a traditional Mario game, partly to clear the reputation surrounding the CDI and Nintendo games, Novalogic hoped to use as little money as possible on the project, which was mostly executed with the intentions of making a small amount of profit, while games such as those of Novalogic's Comanche series had bigger focus and funding. Accurately capturing sprites from Super Mario World was difficult for the development team, as the CDI had a different way of drawing sprites than the Super Nintendo did. Due to this difference, the developers had to pirate their sprites from Super Mario World, whatever that means, and I would assume that it means that they hooked up the Super Nintendo to a VHS player, and then hooked up that VHS player to a computer, and then screenshotted every frame, and then just used Photoshop or something, but then that's just looking way too deep into it, and I couldn't find a specific answer to that question. Or maybe I just have a really vivid imagination. That too. The developers produced Mario, as well as several Koopa Troopa variations based on the Super Mario World sprite. They produced Greek Koopas clad in tunics and fig leaves, Night Koopas with feathered helmets, blue Eskimo Koopas in parkas, and dark Vampire Koopas with capes and fangs. The development team also created an enemy of their own, which was a walrus in the style of Mario World. The game's various backgrounds were actually all hand-drawn by the development team. In fact, they were indeed based off paper drawings, and those paper drawings were based off real-world locations. I'm not gonna lie, these backgrounds actually look really nice, and they also look pretty advanced for the time, considering the fact that most backgrounds were made of pixels, the fact that they physically scanned paper drawings and put them into the background and added scrolling to them, that's pretty impressive. Now you may think that this game was lost to time similar to Mario Takes America, but that's where you're wrong. Apparently, somehow, someone found a prototype of this game, or 3 of them in fact, and one of them sold on eBay for like $1,000, and it's commonly assumed that the one that sold on eBay is the one that's currently on the internet right now, as a leaked prototype. Version 0.11, the prototype version, dated March 3rd, 1993, contained about 80% of the game's art, 95% of its design, and about 30% of its code. As I just said, 3 prototypes are currently in circulation, and one of them sold for $1,000 on eBay. However, the original prototypes and burned CDs of the prototypes can be played on a real CDI, as well as in MES and CDI-EMU, if you can get that broken piece of crap to work. As it is a pre-alpha, the game is rather limited. Mario can only walk both ways and jump. No power-ups exist within the game, and he can't swim or slide, but it would appear that these abilities would have been implemented if the game's development had continued. Enemies are also not programmed correctly, as they disappear when Mario jumps on them because the code for jumping on enemies hasn't been fully implemented yet. Enemies also cannot harm Mario, and are stopped in their tracks if touched, even if it means ending up floating in the air. Level progression is not explicit, but can be pieced together by the selectable stages. Most worlds have 2 or 3 levels, the first of which end with warp pipes, or similar things, kinda like a Trojan horse in one of the levels, whereas the last most often has a stylized M holding tape. Presumably this is a similar kind of thing to the end gates from Mario World, but instead of ending levels, they'd end worlds. However, the M's may have served a different purpose, as one is found alongside a warp pipe in Igloo 1. Perhaps they would have meant some sort of bonus or secret exit or something, I don't know. Both the M marks and the warp pipes are non-functional, so every time you want to change a level or get out of a level, you'll have to restart the CDI or the emulator that you're using. There were 6 categories of levels with worlds split between them. The worlds were further split into various amounts of sub-levels, but since I'm too lazy to read out the levels, here's the level select screen. And that's about it in terms of this game. Could this game have possibly saved the CDI? Well, maybe, but that's a little bit like asking if better food could have saved your aunt's Christmas party. It could have made the experience just a little bit better, but it would still be a fairly mentally taxing experience. If you liked this video, be sure to click up here in the cards to see the last 2 videos up and on this channel, as well as a text overlay that shows my social media, Twitter at GamingHistory101, and Instagram at GamingHistory101. Don't forget to leave me a comment, tweet at me, or just comment on my Instagram what you'd like me to make a video on, and if I like the idea, I'll try to fit it into the schedule, and if I don't, it's not like I have a choice anyway. I don't really have many ideas for videos. But, if this is already part for today, this has been Gaming History 101. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.